Today's episode is sponsored by SiteSpartan.com. As a website and digital marketing company, SiteSpartan specializes in creating custom websites at affordable prices. They also help individuals with the process of writing and publishing a book. And hey, this is the same company that I use for all my websites, whether it's my personal page, book landing pages, or even my small business websites. To find out more and get started today, visit SiteSpartan.com. That's SiteSpartan.com. Hey, this is Jeff Jerina, and I want to officially welcome you to episode 1 of the Jeff Jerina Show. Now, you may be thinking, wait a second, Jeff, this is not your first podcast episode. Why are you calling it episode number 1? Well, the reason is because I'm changing the name of the show to the Jeff Jerina Show. And I'll tell you why here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I have some really cool announcements. And then at the end of this podcast, I'm going to share 3 things that I think that you need to be focusing on here in 2025 to take your personal and or your professional life to the next level. So with all that said, let's jump in to the first ever episode of the Jeff Jerina Show.
This is the Jeff Jerina Show.
Okay, so I want to step back here just a bit because I want to share a little of the history of this podcast, especially for those of you who are jumping in for the very first time. So it's probably about 10 years ago, and at that time, I started hearing people talk about this thing called podcast. And at that time, I had no idea what a podcast was. And I didn't even ask because, you know, sometimes how you just kind of nod along so people think you know what they're talking about, or so they think that you totally get it. That's exactly what I was doing. And then in 2017, a friend of mine said, Jeff, you should start a podcast for men. And I just kind of stared at him thinking, that doesn't make any sense. You want me to start something that I don't even know what it is? And so I finally asked, okay, but what exactly is a podcast? And he kind of smiled at me and he said, wait, you seriously don't know? And I'm like, no, man, I have no idea. Is it some kind of new social media thing? Is it a workout routine? Is it a gardening club? I mean, I have no idea what it is. What is it? And so thankfully, he explained it to me. And I was like, okay, well, that makes so much more sense. And the more that we talked, the more I started thinking, hey, well, maybe this is something I should actually try. And then probably within about a week or so of that conversation, there were several others that told me I should start a podcast as well. And I was like, okay, God, I get the message. I know what you're talking about. And so really in an effort to niche down, I chose the Men Unplugged name for the podcast because I was already doing men's ministry. And as someone who's married and who has kids and has worked in the corporate environment as well as the nonprofit sector, and at that time I had been running several businesses for probably almost 20 years, I thought, well, maybe I can share some things that could help others. But the more I thought about it, I didn't know if I had enough content to share on a daily or weekly basis at that time just by myself. So I really started praying and thinking about it and realized that it would be a lot better if I had other people on the show. I'm talking about top leaders, well-known individuals that could share their stories and share their struggles of how they overcame obstacles and what they've done to be successful and how they've strengthened their faith through that and improved their lives. I thought, you know, that is something that would work. That is something that I would love to do. I think that could help a lot of people. And I think, you know what, that could help me as well. But what's been really tough for me is I'm at this part of my life now that I want to talk about a lot of stuff. I'm talking about a lot of different things. And the Men Unplugged show, it kind of keeps me in this small box, you know, kind of in a small corner where I can only talk about life from the lens of Christian discipleship. Now, don't get me wrong here because I love what we built with Men Unplugged, but over time, I realized that I've had so much more that I want to talk about. Life isn't just about one area, right? I mean, there's faith, but there's also personal growth, business, relationships. I mean, all these things that impact who we are. And I felt like the name Men Unplugged has kept me in this little box where I could only talk about one piece of this bigger picture. And when I started thinking about all the people that I've learned from over the years and all the great stories and the wisdom from others that I would like to share, the truth is I've never been able to share some of those on the Men Unplugged show because the name of the show itself, whether that's fair or it's not, it kind of keeps me in that small box. And before I even launched the podcast years ago, I probably pre-recorded probably about 40 plus interviews. And at that time doing those interviews, it was apparent to me that this podcast wasn't just for men. It was for anyone. I'm talking about men and women at any age and stage of life. And today, a good portion of the audience is women. But I would probably say, for the sake of branding and probably even more than that, my time or lack of time and an unwillingness to go through the pain of changing the name and changing the podcast cover art and then making sure that all the podcast hosting platforms such as Apple and Spotify and others would keep the episodes intact, I kept the name as Men Unplugged. But really, for the past year or so, I felt this urge to change the name of the show. And so when I'm speaking to others, whether it's answering a question I get through email or in my coaching and speaking forums, I get asked about a lot of different things. I'm talking about stuff like personal development, entrepreneurship, business-specific or professional development type of questions. And in terms of spiritual issues, I get a lot of questions or interest in topics that appeal to a wider audience. I'm talking about men and women. And so really the goal here of this podcast is not to help just men, but also women in their personal, spiritual, and their professional lives. And so with all that said, I want to let you know that these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about on the Jeff Jerina Show. Now, it won't be all that we're talking about, but this is going to be some of the things that we're going to be talking about. And so with that, as we change the name of the show on YouTube as well, you may have to resubscribe to the show on YouTube. I don't know how that works, but you may have to do that. And just so you'll know, when I roll out a new podcast episode, you're going to be able to see what that specific episode is about, whether it's something on personal development or entrepreneurship, maybe it's a business or career tip, or maybe it's a few quotes I've heard or read and think that you should hear. Maybe it's an interview with someone that has a really cool story or wisdom to share. And of course, those episodes where we dive into scripture and biblical truths, I'm going to label each one of those episodes in some specific way on the title of that episode. Now, to make that even easier, you can hear about all these changes and keep up to date on everything that I'm talking about by subscribing to my newsletter, which I call the Ignite newsletter at jeffjerina.com/newsletter. And I hope here that you're going to like this new format and that you're going to find something that you love and that will help you personally and or professionally. I really hope that. And hey, I also want to let you know that I'm working on my 4th book right now, and my goal here is to have it published this year in 2025. So be on the lookout for that sometime this year. And hey, if you want to get a sneak peek at the book and maybe even be part of the launch team, all you need to do is just go to my contact page at jeffjerina.com/contact and just let me know in the contact form. All right, so there's a quick intro about the Jeff Jerina Show and the new setup. Now, before I dive into those 3 things that I'm going to be focusing on this year to help me grow personally and in my business endeavors, I want to share a quick story with you. Now, the reason why I want to share the story with you is because it's a new year. And for most of us, if not everyone, it's a time of hope and new beginnings, right? And in one sense, it's a hope that things are going to be better from the year before. At least for me, that is. And a desire, or maybe we could say an expectation for better results. And so when I share this quick story with you, please know that I'm sharing this with the understanding that if you've been struggling with something the past year, or maybe even the past several years, I know where you're coming from. And so as I think about last year, I'm talking about me here personally, 2024, and I guess really the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a really tough time for me. And the reason why I say that is because there have been several things that have happened to me that did not work out like I expected. I mean, not even close. And one of those would have been a big win for the Men Unplugged podcast. It looked like it was about to happen where we were about to expand the show and get the additional financial support and the sponsorship that we needed to do that. But in 2020, when the pandemic hit us and really affected everyone throughout the world in one way or another, for us, we lost our investors. And when that happened, that was a major blow for me. I mean, that was tough. And really the reason why it was so bad, why it was so tough for me is because I had this vision of growing the podcast and reaching more people and helping more people and making an even bigger impact. And then just like that, it just fell apart. Nothing happened. It just completely shut down. And with the economy, the way it's been over the past 4 years, for us having to pivot and tweak some of what I've been doing in our web design and our digital marketing business. That business is called Site Spartan, and you can find out about that if you want to at sitespartan.com, as well as our Christmas light installation and training business, which you can find out about that at christmaslightsdesign.com. And then also during that time, I launched a new ministry, and for 2 years I poured a lot of time into it, a lot of energy, a lot of money, and it didn't work out. We had to close it down. And so with all that stuff, all those setbacks, when all those things happen and having to adjust and change and all these different things, all that just wore me down. And it got so bad that I didn't even realize how much it was affecting me until my own kids, they would ask or say, this is what they would say to me. They'd say, "Dad, why aren't you smiling and laughing anymore?" And man, when I heard that, that was just like a wake-up call. I mean, that hit me really hard. And so part of what I had to do over the past couple years, just to keep things going, was to double down or expand on the training courses that I offer, as well as the content that I provide. And I'm talking here more specifically, I had to think outside the box of what I was already doing. Now, although I wanted to quit on many occasions, I'm talking about a lot of times, because I, number one, doubted and I questioned God's plan for me. And then also I was thinking, I just don't want something else to fail. But in the midst of that, when I was thinking about my family and thinking about my kids, I was like, I got to keep pushing forward. I got to persevere. I don't want my kids to see their dad as somebody who quits. So I want them to always persevere, even when life gets tough. I want them to have that virtue of perseverance, of resolve. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep pushing forward, even though it was tough. And with that, I made the decision to ramp up and release a Christmas light training course, which I call Christmas Lights for Profit. And internally, when I was doing that, I felt like it was going to help people create another stream of income. I mean, it's done that for me and my family. And maybe even at the very least, expand on their existing business. And let's be honest here, who hasn't needed that over the past 4 years, right? And even going forward now, extra income. But I just got to tell you here that I was scared that when I edited all these videos that I've recorded on my phone and other cameras over the past 15 plus years, I didn't know that all that time that I'd be spending in the investment in the course platform and all the money I'd be spending on marketing and advertising, I didn't know if that was actually going to work. So I went into this whole thing with a massive amount of fear of, number one, losing more money, and probably more than anything, I would say a fear that I was going to fail. I just didn't want to fail. But in some ways, as I mentioned earlier, especially my family, I didn't have a choice. I had to try something different. I could not stop. I could not quit. And in a big way, I had to have faith that this was going to work. And I'm here to tell you that, praise the Lord, those little steps that I took to create, to publish, to market, to promote the course, all that stuff actually worked. And what's really cool is that people have actually signed up for the course, they've taken it, and it's launched and scaled their business and their side hustles. It's helped them to generate more income. And for me, as a coach, as a teacher, as a speaker, as a course creator, content, creator, whatever you want to call it, for me, that makes me feel good, because I'm like, okay, what I've learned, if it can help somebody else turn those decades to days and and speed things up and help them to where they can overcome these obstacles and not go through all the pain and the struggles that I went through and just immediately get to that success part, I'm like, man, that makes me feel good. And then also what it's done for me and my family is it's provided us some additional income, which we've really needed. And I think also for me, it showed me again that you have to be willing to take risk in order to succeed. Now, I would add here that those risks, they have to be calculated and they have to be well thought out. I mean, you just can't be thinking, okay, I'm just going to do anything and try everything and it's all going to work out. I mean, you kind of have to have a strategy. And I would probably add to that, you have to have a couple options. You have to have an option A and an option B, maybe even option C if something doesn't work, so you're not putting yourself or your family in a bad position. And then also you have to be willing to take a leap of faith to achieve your goals. And then I would also say here that no matter as bad things are or as bad as they seem that they are, or maybe as bad as you feel that they are, you can't give up. You have to push through. You can't quit. You have to persevere. And I think that's why one of my favorite verses is James 1 verse 12. And it's a verse that I really leaned on the past couple of years. And I'm just going to read this verse to you, and maybe it will bless you in some way. And so the verse says, it says, blessed is the man, and you could fill in woman, but it says, blessed is the man or woman who perseveres under trial. Because when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. And for each of us, the test is different, right? What we have to learn is different, and it may change from 1 month to the next or 1 year to the next. But as we push through that, as we persevere, there's going to be a blessing. And I don't know what the blessing will be for you, but we're going to get something good from it as we push through. And so that's why this year, I'm going to be making a conscious effort to do these 3 things. And as I share these 3 things with you, know that this is what I'm going to do. And if in any way, if they encourage you, I would just, say, hey, maybe try one of them, maybe try all 3 and see if they'll help you in your own personal and professional life. So with all that, the first thing that I'm going to be focusing on is I'm going to be spending more time with the Lord. Now, I'm talking about personal alone time with God. I want to make sure that I'm continually breaking through all the noise around me so I can be at peace. And how I'm going to be doing that is I'm going to be taking some of my own medicine that I prescribed to others for years. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to be going through the 4 steps that I've outlined in my book, Cut Through the Noise. Now, you can find out more about that at jeffjerina.com/noise. That's NOISE. Now, the second thing that I'm going to be focusing on, or I'm going to be doing here this year, is I'm going to be taking some of those leaps of faith that I was talking about in my companies and also in my coaching and speaking business. And the reason why is because I want to stop overthinking so much, and I just want to do. Now, specifically what I'm talking about for me is I really want to stop worrying about something that I'm creating being perfect, or in my eyes perfect, and I just want to finish it. I just want to get it done. And I know that nothing that I create, nothing that any of us creates, can ever be perfect. But for some reason, I have this false illusion, this false idea that it's going to be perfect. And I don't know if you do this or not, but maybe it's just me. But maybe I'm thinking that, hey, if I'm creating this thing, if whatever I'm writing or creating or proposal I'm putting together, project, whatever that is, I'm thinking, okay, if I don't get this exactly the way that somebody else needs to receive it or the way that I think that they would like to see it, then I think that maybe they'll judge me, they'll ridicule me, make fun of me. I don't know what that is. Or maybe they'll think it's not good enough and they won't be able to use it. And that false idea, this idea of perfection, is preventing me from getting stuff done. So I don't want that to happen anymore. And I don't know if you can relate with that or not. But again, I'm just tired of keeping things at 75% done or 80% done or 95% done or even 99% done and never getting it out the door because it wasn't exactly the way I wanted it. And I think taking those leaps of faith, maybe even those small steps in finishing something, will help me do that. And lastly, this is for those of you who own a business, or maybe a coach, a teacher, maybe you're in sales, or maybe you're an entrepreneur. One of the things that I'm going to be doing a better job of this year is marketing or promoting or sharing what I do or how I help others. Now, this is something that I haven't done a great job of over the past 2 years. And I think really the reason for that is because there's been such a massive increase in ad cost on Google, Facebook, and other social platforms. And because of that, that unwillingness to get out there more and really a fear of losing more money and not getting the conversion on what I'm spending on ad cost has really kept my business from growing like I wanted. And it kind of reminds me of this saying or this idea of, you know how if you have a great idea, you have a great product, or you have a great service, but you never share it with others? If you don't tell others about your idea, your business, your product, your service, how you can help them, no one's ever going to hear about it. And because they never hear about it, they never have a chance to use it. And because they never have a chance to use it, they can't benefit from it. And because they never use it, you can never benefit from it either. And so with that, I want to be a better marketer. I want to be a better promoter so I can let others know how I can help them. And I want to do this obviously filled with grace and in a way that's not braggadocious. I just want to let people know, hey, this is what I do and this is how I can help you and how I help others. So that's it, guys. Those are some of the things that I'm going to be planning on implementing this year. And I hope that they give you some encouragement and some ideas to incorporate into your own life this year. Whether that's to deepen your walk with the Lord, or maybe it's to strengthen some area of your life personally, or maybe it's to take the next step in your professional career, maybe even your business. All right, guys, to make sure you don't miss a single thing, make sure you go to my website at jeffjerina.com, where you can find a link to every podcast episode. And on that website, you're also going to find links to my YouTube channel, where I have some long form and short form video content, as well as my new Rumble channel, Instagram, and Facebook. And then also, you're going to get immediate access to every one of my books and courses and how to reach out to me for individual and group coaching. And hey, if all that's too much to take in at once, all you need to do is subscribe to the Ignite newsletter at jeffjerina.com/newsletter. When you do that, you're going to be up to date on everything that we're doing here. And then also, you're going to make sure that you don't miss a thing. All right. What'd you think of episode 1 of the Jeff Jerina Show? Are you excited about the new format? Did you like it? Please let me know. And please, if you liked it, subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and take a screenshot on your phone and post it on social and tag me and let me know you liked it. I'd really appreciate that. And hey, if you have something you want me to talk about on the podcast, hit me up on my contact page at jeffjerina.com. Thanks a lot for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate you. See you on the next episode.